I honestly do not know where I left off in what I have read recently because we lost all that footage. I can't find it anywhere. And I know it was recording because it was long enough that if it wasn't, the camera would have beeped at me saying, okay, we're just idly sitting here. I'm going to turn off now. And I don't have any of that. So I have zero idea of where all this footage went. I had maybe 4 or 5 books that I had read up into the Hey Reader-a-thon back in the beginning of October. And that's all gone. I have zero idea of what I can share with you. So, I'm basically going off of Goodreads and last updated. And we'll just start here. I've definitely been in a huge reading slump. Part of it is just no motivation to do anything other than sleep these days. Once things are done that I need to do for the day, I just want to sleep. So the Hey Reader-a-thon kind of was a big fat failure for me. I really didn't think I was going to be able to accomplish it. It just sounded like a whole lot of fun. But with family here from about that week to the end of the month, I got nothing read. I got nothing done. My whole focus was just any moment, to spend with family. So the books that I have read that I think that I haven't updated you on, we'll start with Nowhere Boy by Catherine Marsh. This is a story about an immigrant that gets to sneaks in, what do they call that? He's an illegal immigrant that gets into, I think it's Belgium, a European country. He and his dad are trying to escape a lot of the, all those details, it's not coming to me. All the little specific details, I can just tell you the whole storyline. But basically, his dad in the boat across is believed to have drowned. And he's just trying to stay hidden. This immigrant boy is trying to stay hidden in the basement for as long as possible. There's a family that is living in this house that basically is just not there all day. They're there because they're giving this boy a last chance to go to school, learn the language, become better, kind of become motivated to do school. And he just has a I don't care about life attitude. And he finds the illegal boy in his basement and realizes that the government is trying to capture all these people, put them in a camp, and send them back. And this boy's like, we don't want to go back. It's not good there. This boy in the basement has been keeping track of bananas he stole, and he's just keeping the very minimum food to survive, and he's been keeping track of it all so that he can pay the family back when he can. And this American boy kind of starts realizing that there is a reason to live now, and so he becomes friends with this immigrant. More characters come into the story, and I really enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the story. Another one I read was Between Shades of Grey by Rhoda Sepetes. I think I'm going to breeze through it with no problem, and I still get tongue twisted on her name. And Between Shades of Grey is kind of hard because, I don't know, every time I saw that book on the shelves at the library, I automatically connected it with the 50 Shades of Grey series. Somebody took that inspiration and then ran with it, or assumed it was a Civil War retelling, and I just had no interest in it. And actually the story is about a Lithuanian family that gets sent to those awful camps that I can't think of. Oh my gosh, my brain. They're sent away to a camp in Siberia, and it's just the bleak and awfulness of it all. And the story is very Honestly, I did not expect to like this one much at all. As I was reading it, I'm just like, this is not a character I really like. She's very self-centered. She's just horrible. I didn't really like the character. I found her very shallow, a very shallow character. That's what I'm trying to say. And the more you get into it, the more I just really started growing to appreciate, again, that you have a flawed character who is growing and maturing, and then you have these other characters in the book that kind of play into who she is becoming by their influence. And more, I just really appreciated that book once it was done. When I had read Words on Fire previously, I had said that I wanted more Lithuanian books in history, just something that I hadn't seen. And here we were. This is about Stalin and his all those things that he did that we really don't know about. The fact that this family lives in depravity type of circumstances in Siberia, just really, you don't fully understand what they have gone through until you're reading this book, and the heartache is just incredible. So that one I gave 4 stars. It was really well done. Again, it was a book that I just didn't think as I was reading it I was going to like as much as Fountains of Silence. But the more I got into it, the more I really liked it. I still think I would read Fountains of Silence over this one, but it was like if I were to reread something. But it was still good. It's another book I read was Under a Painted Sky by Stacy Lee, and this is about a Chinese American whose father was burned by a low-down, typical Western story. This is a kid's. It's above middle grade. I would definitely say it's YA, but I didn't find it in the YA section, so I have a few issues with this book. But honestly, if you've read Lonesome Dove, you're gonna get the gist. This is kind of like a retelling of Lonesome Dove in a twisted way for kids, not in a retelling kind of way for kids. So the Chinese girl, the dad's killed, and then the guy that basically owns the store is like, okay, now I own you because you're going to owe me for this thing. And he goes to do something horrible to her, and she ends up killing him accidentally, trying to rescue herself. And then this black slave comes in and is like, okay, I figured out a way out of this. We're going to run away and we're going to go on the Oregon Trail. So this Chinese American and the runaway slave are now going to basically become men. They've cut their hair. They do things to make it seem like they're guys, and they're going to go on the Oregon Trail and find new lives for themselves. During this time, they also come across with 4 or 5 guys, and they kind of just join bands like, we have no idea how to survive this, and look at you guys, you know exactly what you're doing kind of mentality. Things that really irritated me that kind of show their colors that this was a YA book is that these are guys. These girls are guys on this trail, and they both have an attraction to another guy. But apparently these 2 guys that also feel these attractions to the girls have no clue that they're really girls. Like, you find that out at the end, that they genuinely had no idea that they were girls, while these other boys knew it all along and was kind of playing the whole romance thing between the 2. And at one point, the Chinese American guy stumbles across the one she loves entangled in another woman, and is reacting, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't be reacting, I'm a guy, and she's just like running away and dealing with her feelings, and I'm just like, there's so much here that kind of bugs me. But again, it was a retelling, I think, of Lonesome Dove. Like, there was so much of it that made me think of Lonesome Dove, and again, not because it was a copy by copy moment or whatever, but because it just had the Western thing, the girls trying to get away and be safe and all that. It just had all of that. elements to it. And I gave it 3 stars. Like, it was very interesting. It held my attention. I wanted to read more of it. I didn't want to just put it aside with the roll of my eyes. But there were some things about it. I was like, really. For me, and this is why. Why do authors assume that kids are this dumb, like not to put these things together? Especially if it's going to be a YA. Whatever. Another book that I have that we have finished on this Goodreads list is we finished our read aloud, which was Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Everybody loved it. We ate Turkish delights afterwards, because why wouldn't you read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe without Turkish delights afterwards? Amazing. And everybody loved it. It's still good the 100th time around as it was the first time. Another book I read was 12 Days in May, Freedom Ride in 1961. And I gave this one 4 stars. When I started it, I just wasn't sure how they were going to do this. You can either make it very dry and fact, or you can overdo it. And it's just plays on emotions rather than presenting history. And I don't like either one. I don't like when it plays way over emotions, and I don't like just facts so that there's nothing involved that makes you realize the change that needed to happen. And so the Freedom Ride was about the civil rights, and why I love this book so much is that it began with, hey, here's all the constitutional acts that were instated for equal rights for everyone. And here's what happened afterwards, after this became a national documented thing, and I'm not presenting this right, and I apologize. But hey, look, this is now constitutionally, everybody's treated equal, there's no segregation, just knock it off. And then the lower states, the southern states, kind of just ignored constitutional issues and did whatever they wanted to. And then this Freedom Ride was about to make points about that. The book illustrated or presented all of the people that were involved in the Freedom Ride, and that was really interesting to me to kind of know the backstories of all the people that were on this bus ride, because it wasn't just blacks making a statement. There were different people on here that were also trying to make statements that, hey, we're both on this bus together, and yet I can't be with them, or we all choose to be with them when you have decided to segregate them. And it was just really interesting to me. And then at one point there was a sheriff involved that kind of went undercover to get on this bus to protect them. And like, that story was, it choked me up. So I really recommend that. Insofar as age, I think it would be good for my 12 and 13-year-old. I could probably even do like my 11 and up for ages, just because it is such a, you kind of need to understand more about this time period before you just jump in with this. I think a lot of it would go over the younger kids' heads. Not that the stories aren't relevant in and of itself, but that the whole context just really makes everything a lot better, for lack of a better word. I also read Maylie and the Maze by M.L. Tarpy. I was on her launch team, I guess is what you could say. I got to read the book, I got to present a review, and it was a very fun story about this young girl who wants to be a writer, but she keeps getting writer's block. She is a twin, and her brother kind of get to go with her aunt and maybe her grandmother, now I can't remember. They get to go to London, and they get to experience all these things, and they get to be part of this writers group that's in London, and she gets to see all these things, and you just kind of see her perspective on this whole thing. She's about 10 years old, and so the book, I would say, is really relevant to that age group. I think my 8-year-old daughter would really enjoy it. I think my 7-year-old daughter would really enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I think it was very sweet. There's a couple of things that I think some homeschool parents would want to be aware of, and that is the sibling rivalry is part of here, but at the same time, like, they they work together in an odd sort of way. And so I was able to kind of, well, if you're okay with the Magic Tree House and those kind of stories, you'll be completely fine with this. But I do know some parents that don't even like the Magic Tree House and the sibling things that go on in there. So there's that. The next book I read was Some Kind of Courage, and I'm not even going to be able to say this author's name, so it'll be right here. And you should. Some Kind of Courage is about a boy and his father. His father has, at the beginning of the book, has died, and they had come over on the Oregon Trail, I believe, or come to a better land in order to start their life. He had already lost his sister and his mom on the trail, and now he's lost his dad, and then the guy that he ended up with is kind of a meanie, and the guy sold his horse. And that's kind of the start of this book, and this boy is done and over it. He takes his money after kind of like holding up this weird, this mean old man, and he's like, that's it, I'm out of here. I'm taking the money that's rightfully mine because you sold my horse, and I'm heading out. And the book is very humorous. Like, my boys would really love this book. It's humorous, and then at one point the boy stumbles across a Chinese boy. They can't communicate with each other because the Chinese boy speaks Chinese and the American boy, is English. And so they're working together to try to figure out where to get. And I think the Chinese boy is trying to find his father. I think you do understand that, or trying to find family. And I think you do figure that out at one point. But he and the boy are just heading across the desert, everything, to go after this horse. And it's just that story. And it's beautiful. It's cute. Really enjoyed it. Very westerny, very Western boy type of book. It was a thrill. Another book that I did was At Heaven's Edge, True Stories of Faith and Rescue. That one was just, I'm going to leave a link for the review that I did for that on the blog post down below. It was more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I did sign up for this, personally, my choice, because I have a daughter that wants to be a doctor and I have a son that wants to be a fireman, and here is paramedic telling all of these rescue stories and how God was involved in it. That being said, I think the God faith part of it was just very minor part of it. It was just like a prayer thrown in here or a reference how God saved them in this, but there really wasn't a whole lot of that in here, other than we just acknowledge that God had a hand in this, which is, it's fine. It just, that wasn't the story. The focal point of the book was all of these rescue stories, and some of them were really fascinating. Like, there was a girl buried alive on the beach. Like, accidentally she fell in a hole and was completely buried. Like me, I'm just like, I never want to let my kids dig on the beach again. That was fascinating. So there was that one, and I think I gave that 4 stars because she did a really good job with the book. Truly Known Devotions of God's Grace in Our Life was another book I read. There have been a lot of books that have been published recently that I'm very puzzled by how they categorize things. And so I would say devotions are kind of that way because I think they should just be labeled Christian living. There is nothing devotion about it. It's just more of, here's a short scripture, here is my opinion on everything, and we're going to throw that scripture in here because it has to fit somehow, some way. And I don't think that's a devotion. That's just you wanting to share your life experience and label it as a devotion. But what I found different about this book is that at the beginning, the author clearly states that she's not trying to create a heavily devotion book for new Christians. They're just more bite-sized type things that you can take and just be encouraged throughout the day. It has nothing to do with growing necessarily in your faith. Just trying to be encouraged and grow in your faith in that way. Does that make sense? So I was really encouraged by that, and I did not find anything in that book that I was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute, what about this verse? And a lot of times I do, but I did not find anything off the top of my head in that book. So I was really impressed by that book. Another one I read was Brought to Book by Barbara Kornsweight, who I love her books. She has written some other ones that I've read in the past. And she has a deep knowledge of history that is so valuable. And she was a missionary in Ireland. Like, I know this lady, so I'm going to brag on her for a minute. She's a missionary in Ireland, I believe, or her husband's Irish. Maybe they were a missionary somewhere else, and her husband's Irish. I don't remember. And then they adopted from other nations.
I'm just watching something.
Thank you. I'll deal with it in a minute. We've got about 20 minutes, Ben. And anyway, she's just fascinating. And then she's got this degree in history, and so she's really knowledgeable in different period things. And so I can trust that her books are going to be not periodically accurate, but historically accurate for that time period. That's what I'm trying to say. So this one is brought to book. It was just it's a novella, I believe is what they call it. It was very fun. It was very lighthearted. It's a cozy mystery, and I don't know. I just enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. When I was reading the back of the book, I was like, okay, I don't like novellas. Like, they're so hard to write a good story for such a short amount of time and it not feel rushed or feel incomplete. And Barbara did a phenomenal job on that. I also did Legacy of Honor by Renee Brumbaugh Green. This one, her mother was a housekeeper at a rich family dwelling up the road, and her mom has died, and so she's going to give up her dreams to become a teacher because she needs to now go work for this family, even though they have humiliated her to the utmost. And then the father, who is very, money-oriented, very typical typical Christian period drama, very money-oriented, very status-oriented, very blah, 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 blah. He is wanting her in her place. Well, his son ends up with a child that's half American, and he wants nothing to do with her. He kind of wants her out of the way in the shadows, pretend she doesn't exist. It's a blight to the family name and all of that. And so she kind of just steps up and is like, this is a child. I wanted to be a teacher. The child will be treated right, and kind of does her own thing with that. And then there's this romance thrown in, and then it's very typical, okay? It's very typical Christian romance. And it's a smaller book. I think it goes beyond a novella. It's just a short story. And again, it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel, honestly, I didn't get halfway through it and just kind of go, oh, it was well done. I probably won't read it again. I did give it to my daughter because she showed interest in it, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with you reading this. The gal that's kind of your north and south, Thornton's sister, very much so her. But over the book, you kind of just see this slow progression of her, kind of like, ooh, do I really want to be this kind of person? And then it was like a light bulb clicked, and she becomes a different person. And so that was really neat to see, especially after she had treated someone so nastily, and is very influenced by her father-in-law and how he sees everybody. And so I thought that, I think, honestly, was the best part of the book, was just watching that. Chantal, you won't like it. Don't watch it. If you like Christian fiction because you like that it's clean, you like that you don't have to worry about it, and if you like those type of stories, I would actually really recommend it because I think it went beyond the fluff that a lot of books has, and I'm going to talk about one of those books here in just a second. So I was really, really actually surprised at how much I did enjoy that book. And then the guy that's like the main character, he's not necessarily a likable character either. He still has a stuck-upness to him. And then she's flawed. So I just like that there wasn't like this one perfect character waiting for this other perfect character. Like, they were both flawed, and they both needed to figure things out, and they both needed to grow in Christ. What I loved was that her dad, not nasty rich boy's dad, but her dad had a very beautiful way of looking at life and being a Christian, and kind of influenced her in that. So what I just shared with you here, those are the ones that I finished up to the readathon. And I haven't finished a book since. I set aside I don't know if I think I mentioned it in that video, but I don't think, since it's gone, you'll have known. I set aside the George MacDonald books. I just have no interest in them. And there's so many books that I want to read. So I got rid of those books, and I'm just not going to try to get into George MacDonald. I did not get my Anne done for October, and I think that just hurt my heart so much that I really haven't been inspired to pick up. I actually just haven't been inspired to pick up any book and read it, which is kind of sad. It's very sad. Talking about all of these books, though, kind of creates more of a, ooh, I want to read again, which is really nice. But I haven't finished a book. I DNF'd the George MacDonald's. I DNF'd the Double in the Arithmetic. It was not what I expected at all. And sometimes you pick up those books and you get that and you're just like, do I want to continue? But I've heard to watch the movie and it's better than the book. So by someone that doesn't normally say books or movies are better than books. So I'm going to do that and just call that one good. Call that a wash. I think if I watch the movie, it's kind of like Dickens. I'll watch Dickens. I don't necessarily want to read Dickens. I'll watch him and I enjoy every minute of it. I don't want to read Dickens. So I think this will be that. So I DNF'd that one. I DNF'd another one. I don't even remember. I don't remember what it was. I just got a quarter into it and was so over the language. And I think I had gotten to that point where there was some kind of sex scene and I was done. I don't want it. And I don't even remember what that book is. The Light We Can't See, I tried to start that one. It's a Reese Witherspoon during 9/11. I don't think I'm going to finish that one either. I think I'm done. I just have no interest in it. No interest at all. And then let me talk about the two books that Okay, the next DNF one. Sweetbriar Cottage by Denise Hunter. Published by Thomas Nelson. There's a pastor in here. I don't know where I stopped. It opens up with a very bitter Christian man and a poor, woe is me, non-Christian woman that divorced, and then the bitter Christian man realizes the divorce was never finalized when he gets audited on his taxes. So the girl that's struggling to make it, and then you get lots of flashbacks. And I think that was another thing that was just like, ugh. So the girl, I loved Denise Hunter, by the way, back when I read all the Christian fiction. And now I'm just like, ugh. The girl is running some kind of hair salon, poor as they come, and she feels so bad about that this divorce is not finalized, so that she makes it right with the judge, and she takes the papers out to his ranch and is going to like make everything right. And so then this random snowstorm comes in and they're stuck inside, not for one night, but for multiple days. And during this time, she can't help but look at him and see the attraction, and she wants him so badly. And he can't stop but look at her and see the betrayal that she's done to him. But she looks so good. I was over it. I don't even remember what part I got to, but I was like, I'm done. It's okay, like we were married, so it's okay. Like, but now you're back to where you started. You can't, the guy can't forgive her because she's lied to him, betrayed him. We're not even sure what she did. And she's like, he'll never forgive me for my past, which, again, he married a non-Christian. And her past isn't just a non-Christian past. It's very messy. I don't know. Like, I'm not even gonna finish it, so I can't tell you anything else. But that's where I got, and I was done. Like, I mean, the fact that he's very bitter and it's like, nope, I'm gonna be in my own corner. I don't even want to look at you. You have made me so angry. Well, way to go for acting like a Christ-like man. So thankful God didn't do that to you. DNF'd. But another Christian book that I'm reading and loving is Stories That Bind Us by Susie Finkbeiner. This is after, I think, the Vietnam War, 1960s. And it starts off with her being a widow. What I loved about it is that this isn't a widow that didn't have a very good marriage for the 1950s. She was just kind of the docile wife. No, there was love there. And she's struggling because her husband is no longer there. Loved that. Finally, it's been a while since I've read a book where there was a good marriage. It wasn't just a surviving marriage. So nice. But she grew up in a not so good family in the sense that dad was very short-tempered, but mom was bipolar. And so mom died under mysterious circumstances. And to be honest, I'm that far, a little past that. I'm not sure that mom's dead, to be honest. But sister shows up on the doorstep with her black son. And during the 1960s. And her sister is showing similar signs of what her mom was. And so I think that's why I love this book so much, is that it addressed a lot of depression, bipolar, trying to survive, and how people on the outside just don't know what to do. Like, for them it's, hey, get up and get moving. But that's not necessarily like the good response. And trying to figure out, well, what do you need? You need me to do something. I'm not sure what to do. Just listening isn't helping. Okay, well, what if we put you in a hospital that everybody else does? Is this hospital really helping? It addressed really good things, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping that it stays strong. The only thing I'm not sure is her husband's family owned a bakery, and there's some like cousins and people involved that work there. One of them really likes her sister, and I think it's the cousin. But there's another guy in here that's just kind of a quiet behind the scenes guy, and I constantly get him mixed up with the cousin because they're just not an active role in this book. It's more about her relationship with her sister, and this, her nephew. Her nephew is, kind of grown up a lot like they did, very tight, not sure what is going on here, not sure what I will do to set mom off. Dad's not in the picture, and it sounds like he shouldn't be in the picture. And so there's just, it's one of those messy stories that is so beautiful. And Christ and faith that it proclaims to follow is actually also in here multiple times. Like, she really struggles with being motivated to attend church, because not just because church is the only reason, or you can only be a Christian if you attend church. Like, that isn't the point. The point is that her church family was trying to help her, trying to step outside church and visit her, and they can't really see how she's doing if she won't let them in. But if she comes out, then they're able to surround. So I loved that in this. And again, I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and I have found it just making me enjoy reading again. Making me enjoy Christian fiction again. This is the kind of Christian fiction books that I really enjoy, because these are struggles that we just don't talk about in the church, like mental health, mental things like that. Like, that is a taboo topic that we can't talk about, because if we are depressed, then we don't have enough faith in God. If we have depression, then we have some unconfessed sin that we need to do. If we have depression, then we just need to not pop that pill because that's dependent and you're becoming a drug addict. You need to just accept essential oils that have come out and are natural. Come on. These kinds of books are the ones that I really appreciate when an author writes because they're hard. And those hard ones just really need to be talked about. So, yeah. And I love that love stories right now just aren't necessarily a focal theme. What you get is flashbacks of her and her husband being the love story. Love it. So that's all I've got to share with you this month. I'll catch you on the next video. Until then, have another cup of coffee. I might need my third or fourth one for today. Read another chapter.